Welcome to the Reclaiming Your Voice podcast, season 6. It's been a long time. I am excited to begin this season, focusing on the 4 core pillars, focusing on core values, core need, core behaviors, and core faith. And specifically, how does the 4 core pillars operate in your life? All right, before we get started, because as you see, I am wrapped up and I am ready to go. I'm ready to go to start season 6. I am so ready to go to dive in to the 4 core pillars. Now, if you are new to the podcast, welcome. My name is Vernisa. You can call me V. This podcast has transitioned several times because my life, as I'm on my journey to reclaim my voice, have transitioned. And hopefully everyone that has been following this journey from the OGs back when the podcast was called Coaching Through to the newbies who maybe found this show within at least a month or two ago. Welcome and welcome back. Yes, I want to get started. And disclaimer, hopefully I'm not coming down with something, but I have water next to me, so in case I need to pause, clear my throat, please excuse me. I will do my very best, but we're about to start season 6, and I'm not going to get sidetracked with this, okay? Give me 1 second. Now, for those of you who are newbies, who are new to the podcast, I suggest that you listen to episode 2, episode 7, and episode 10. There are several more episodes that I spoke about core values, but these are the 3 that you can start here. Okay. So how can the 4 core pillars meet you in your life? And I know so many of you are most likely you're already walking this thing out anyway in your life. Core values are different than just your values. Now, if you have been here a while, you heard me talk about this before. So you can either get a refresher or skip a little further so that you won't hear the repetition, or maybe you want to hear it, because I will tell you, is it good to go over what we have already learned to refocus? Yes, it is. So you can either fast forward or you can refocus and get realigned to what I'm going to share. What is several things in your life that are very important to you? We would say family, we would say work, our mental health, our emotional health, our spiritual health. Again, relationships, who are in our lives, whether you have relationships at your job, if you are at school, and absolutely a relationship with yourself. But let's talk about relationships that you have either in your family or outside. If you are married or not, regarding your friendships, all right? My question for you is, have you gotten off track with your personal values, especially regarding friendships and relationships that you are in a monogamous relationship? Here's what happens a lot of times when we are talking about relationships, especially when we are in new relationships or we're just going out there and want to make new friends, okay? We tend to lose track of what our non-negotiables are. And I realize many times over that we do that Mostly not even by mistake. Like it just passed us and now we're here. But there are too many of us forget our core values because we want someone to accept us. We don't want to seem too bougie, or we don't want to see too raw. We don't want to seem too real with people, woke, whatever word you want to use. Too many of us put down our core values and our values so that we can be accepted, so we can be liked. I was at a church meeting that I was checking out, and I met these two wonderful women, and we talked about the topic was knowing your identity. And there was 3 questions that we all had to sit in a group and talk about. And in the group I was in, I shared how when I was 5 years old, being a people pleaser is when that started, me having to break up a fight between one of my older brothers and my mother. And what I also realized is that, as well as me being 5 years old, of course, not really knowing fully what was happening, but I knew very well that I was able to stop this fight, and they did not continue throughout the years professionally and in my personal life. Is that by the time an individual is 7 years old, you already know, you have an idea rather of what your world is and your own environment, and you use it as an example of what the world outside must be like. When I became a people pleaser at the age of 5, that's when my value system began to be programmed. My value system, when I became a people pleaser at the age of 5, began to be taken away from me. I'm 5 years old. I had no time at all in my life to even begin to discover, develop any of those things. But it was a very sensitive time in my life where my core values began, and I didn't even realize it. Core values within a people pleaser are as follows: I need to be validated. I need to help people. I have to fix your problems. I am afraid of confrontation. I just want everyone to be okay, everyone happy, and the list goes on. Those are core values that many of us, maybe you're not a people pleaser, but many of us have experienced that before we even come to age to figure out ourselves, this was already created for us, especially when we're growing up with our parents or whoever raised us. We have no choice but to learn the core values of our home environment, good or bad, whether they are destructive or helpful to our life. Okay, we become conditioned with those values. Then get older. We go out in the world. We go to school. We learn what friendship is. We have teachers. We have all these authority figures in our life, adding to what the opportunity of each individual to growing and discovering our core values. Part of our beliefs is how people treat us. That comes together with what we value, what our non-negotiables are. So if we already have in our mind how people ought to treat us because of it originating from our upbringing, the environment where we were raised, this is how I'm going to be treated from people. Now, is it an exception to that rule? Yes, it is, because life can happen in between that, and seeds can be planted to take you off that path, because we're all different individuals and our core values are going to relate to many people, but they're already individual. They are unique to ourselves, and that is to be respected and that is to be honored. But when we begin to have relationships, those core values are challenged because of what we have already learned in our beginning stages of our childhood. Why am I saying this? Because as adults, we are still out here struggling, figuring out who we are. Too many of us are still struggling with validation and not standing flat footed with what we believe for ourselves in that moment. And I know you have heard about this, and I'm still living like this now, which is why every now and again I check in with my friends. They see us in a different light than what we can see ourselves. And they are able to many times tell us what our values are because they can see things that we can't. And as we mature and as we discover who we are in our core, there are going to be many times where we are going to tell our friends, hey, I just discovered this new thing about myself. Now, maybe they already saw it, maybe not. But as we go through this journey regarding our core values, we must reevaluate at times. We must look at how far we have came to make sure that we have not gotten off of our non-negotiables because of the new relationships that we have the opportunity to explore. It is very important that we do not lose ourselves on the journey. And I'm saying that because when I started my reclaiming my voice journey, that is one of the lessons that I had to learn from God himself. And that's when the 4 core pillars was born. I had to learn who I was as a woman, as a human being, where I was in my life at the time. Now, God is included in that, of course, but we need to look at ourselves as individuals to discover and figure out, why do we do the things that we do? Why do we tolerate what we tolerate? Why are we still walking around needing people to validate us when we have a list of core values that we had written down? At one point, we were walking flat-footed in. Something happened. Something happened in our walk. Depending on your life, again, we all separate, we all individuals on this journey. Check in with yourself. Have I gotten off my path? Have I left what a couple months ago I said I believed in? And if things change, why? Did trauma change things? Did grief change things? Were you single at one and now you're a parent? Or you're single and now you're getting married? What has changed in a positive light that has caused you, when you looked at your core values, when you looked at your non-negotiables, why did it change? Please have a reason why. If you're noticing something is changing, please know why. Especially when change is coming, when there's a lesson attached to it. We don't want to learn any lessons. Well, we don't want to not learn lessons because while we're moving forward, so that we don't have that information to take toward our life moving forward. Here's an example for you. A couple months ago, my boss, who I get along with very well, wanted to offer me a full-time job. I work at a school. He wanted to offer me a full-time position. I knew what the full-time position was, and I didn't want to do that. I'm not going to do that. I'd rather work my part-time job that I enjoy. That's where I'm supposed to be, and that's it. And not even because I'm comfortable, because I'm not comfortable. Every day is a new experience, but I love it and I know that's where I'm supposed to be. Why? Because regarding my job, my values are core values. My non-negotiables is to support those children during their transitions. I am there to support those children while they are out on the playground. I am there to support and teach and encourage those children how to relate to one another, how to communicate with one another, to have boundaries, and how to create a safe environment, how to collab with each other. That is what I'm there for. That is my assignment. My assignment is in that position, not another position. If I would have taken the full-time position, I would have walked off the path of what my values are within that position. But I hope what I'm saying is making sense. Throughout our life, we have to, I deem it necessary to always come back to what our foundation is regarding our values and our core values. Our values and core values will always come back to remind us of where we are. And how do they do that? They do that within our core needs. Core needs help us to be reminded of what our core values are. In every area of your life, you will discover, if you do not know by now, that this world is very fickle. If you allow the world to be your foundation regarding your core values, talk about depression and talk about anxiety. If you let the world guide you, guide your life, because 1 minute the world will say this, the next minute it will say this. The world within itself is not consistent. The world within itself is not worrying about, don't care about the core values that you have in place. The world is too busy trying to tell you what your values should be, what your beliefs should be. So anytime there is a shift in the world, I think that is also a good time for you to check in with what you believe in and to remind yourself what you will and will not do. Again, me talking about this in this context, yes, I'm absolutely talking about healthy, positive core values that are to empower who you are at your core, which is regarding reclaiming your voice. Your core is Christ. The core of who you are can only be discovered through Christ. He is the only one that can show you what that looks like. He is the only one that can give you a foundation with what your core beliefs and non-negotiables are. As we talk more this season, I want you to know at some point I'm going to ask you this question. I'm going to check in with you. Does your core values line up with your core faith? That solid foundation is Christ. So does your core values empower you, or do they have the potential to destroy you in your relationships? Did you say you're going to do something and you didn't? Did you say you was going to be more mindful of red flags and it went over your head? Did you say this wasn't going to happen again? Because if healing and wellness, wholeness, health, to name a few, are your core values, and you saw yourself spiraling, if you saw yourself having moments of depression, not wanting to face fears, face change, you need to go back and look at your values. Not you necessarily have to change anything, but be reminded of the path that you are on, especially if your core values have proven solid in your life. When you know that you are in a good place, when you are in aligned with your core values, that is absolutely the place you need to return to and welcome God in that space. Welcome your core faith into that space. So let's review. Where are you regarding your core values? Has it become part of your foundation? If it has not, let's relook at it and find out why. What has happened in your life that had taken you away from your core values? If you have been doing well with your core values, pat yourself on the back, celebrate that. Is your belief system bringing you closer to discover who you are at your core? That is what Reclaiming Your Voice is about, and that is also what the 4 core pillars are about. Welcome to season 6, and let's continue the conversation next week. And as always, now and after. Be well and peace out.